Hello, today's topic is nose breathing. As we all know, we can breathe through our mouth and through our nose. I learned about 10-15 years ago that nose breathing is beneficial and is superior to mouth breathing for everyday kind of breathing. So obviously if you're out running or if you're in the gym, you need a lot of extra oxygen being breathed through our mouths. But for kind of sleeping at night, for just kind of a daily resting breath, it should be through our nose for a wide amount of different reasons. And I'm going to go through about 5 of them here today. So the first reason is that breathing through our nose filters out dust and allergens. It's a restricted pathway for the air, and it has to go through different channels, and basically it's a longer path for the air to reach your lungs than through your mouth. So a lot of people who suffer from asthma or stuffed noses develop allergens and get sick a lot easier. There's a few studies on this, and this is a very interesting point. So I think just because of that alone, it's very intuitive to learn to breathe through your nose. Now normally we are born breathing through our nose, but modern life and allergens and being exposed to certain things leads us to have a blocked nose and therefore to never really breathing through our nose properly. This leads to a variety of problems, and this brings me on to my second reason. If we breathe through our mouth, our jaw and our face develops differently. So there's some very good videos by this by Dr. Mike Mew. He's a very good YouTube channel. A lot of people have referenced before in other videos. I would check that out if you're interested in this. I don't have a very good example of how this works, but basically, if you breathe through your mouth all the time, your mouth will be open like this, and that leads to a different development of the skull and of the jaw and of that region. I believe it's to do with the fact that your body trains itself over time. So if you do a certain thing in a certain way, your body will train to be better at that, and that isn't always good. So breathing through your nose is better because your mouth is always shut for the entire day. Your mouth and jaw is in a natural position, and therefore you avoid that complication. Another similarly interesting thing is the teeth. If we breathe through our mouth, our tongue rests in an unnatural position for most of the day. It could be against our bottom teeth, it could be against a tooth somewhere, and it's pushing it bit by bit with tiny bits of pressure out of position. Whereas if you breathe through your nose, your mouth is closed, and your tongue should rest at the top of your mouth. Again, this is supplying slight pressure and helps to develop the teeth in the proper way. Again, there's other good YouTube channels on this. I don't know everything, but that's definitely a rough point that I wanted to make. My next point is that mouth breathing dries out your mouth, and you let a lot of excess moisture escape the body through mouth breathing. So it means you have to drink more water, and it's just a general inefficiency. And this makes a lot of sense. If you find yourself, if you stand near a glass and it's let's say a window and it's cold outside and you breathe up against it, you'll get this kind of condensation effect, and that'll be a lot more pronounced and a lot more evident if you breathe through your mouth than if you breathe through your nose. Similarly, breathing through your nose heats up the air as it gets to your lungs. Now, I don't fully understand this, but apparently this allows for your lungs to better use the oxygen as opposed to you're feeding it. So your lungs. So you've breathed your mouth, the air gets up there a lot quicker and hasn't been warmed up and hasn't been prepared for your lungs. So it's another valid point. Definitely, in my opinion, mouth breathing is for when you're needing extra oxygen very quickly, like a lot of volume. But nose breathing allows you to kind of train your body to need less volume of air for everyday activity. This is another point that I heard when I was younger, is if you breathe through your nose all the time, you breathe more shallower and you need less air. In order to observe whether you're breathing properly, a good point is obviously make sure you're breathing through your nose, but also focus where you're breathing into. So you can breathe into your lungs, which will kind of expand your chest. You probably won't see this really well, but you can breathe up into here, and that's meant to be not the right place to breathe into. You're meant to breathe into your stomach. So again, I don't know if you can see this, but kind of almost. Now that's kind of a exaggerated version, but you should be feeling your diaphragm basically, breathing into your belly, and that's meant to be the best way to breathe. Through your nose, into your stomach, shallow breaths, not kind of panting all day long. And this means you'll have a better lung capacity, a better ability to use less air to do what you need to do. And that means then when you actually need to run or need to do exercise, that you become out of breath less easily if you've managed to develop that over time. Now, I was a mouth breather when I was younger. I had not asthma. I never had asthma directly, but I definitely had a blocked nose all the time. I had symptoms a bit like asthma, and it wasn't until I was maybe 8 years old that my parents taught me about this technique. We went to a specialist, and it was very interesting for me at the time because I never heard about the idea. And suddenly I saw people everywhere breathing to their mouths, thinking, like, is that really bad for them? Now, I don't think it's terrible you breathe through your mouth, but definitely there are benefits to breathe through your nose. That's definitely been proven by multiple studies. It's just the natural way that we breathe. I think all animals breathe through their noses as well, most of them. It's just the way we are designed as human beings and as I suppose creatures on the earth. Most of them do breathe through their nose. Now, I didn't fact check that, but it seems logical to me. So maybe you could tell me in the comments if I'm correct there, but I'm pretty sure I am. This is a nice little trick now. It's a little breathing exercise. I think is super useful. I've been doing it a couple of times. I've heard it on the Andrew Huberman podcast as well. If you're in a stressful situation, or if in general you're trying to meditate, or just you want to relax in general, a really excellent exercise is to breathe through your nose until you can barely breathe anymore inwards, and then breathe a tiny bit more as far as you can go until you go so much that it just bursts out again. So I'll demonstrate. So breathe out, breathe into your nose. Basically, you're breathing all the way in until your lungs fully at capacity, and then you let it all out again. Now, I forget the exact reason why this is so good for you. Basically, it relaxes you. It does something in your brain, activates some sort of neural pathway, and it gives you kind of a meditative effect afterwards. A bit like the way cold showers also give you this boost of endorphins and dopamine. This is a little bit similar. So if you're ever in a stressful situation where you feel you need to relax, you need to kind of take a step back, you're close to having maybe a little panic attack or whatever, depends on what your situation is, that exercise has been proven to really help. Perhaps you do it before you're going on stage for public speaking or before a presentation in school, whatever it is. So yeah, I definitely think breathing is a super important element of our lives that we need to understand. It definitely can be very impactful for people who do it wrong in a big way. So I have a few friends who are mouth breathers, and they do have very poor teeth, so they need to get braces, which is expensive and painful, and it's unnecessary if from a younger age you can catch this. Now, what some people do, and this is a bit extreme, but I did do this for a while, is when I was a very bad mouth breather, you can put a very special tape over your mouth at night to force yourself to nose breathe. It has to be a very specific tape, otherwise you'll hurt yourself. I don't know what it's called, but it's available somewhere. I only did this a few times. It's a bit extreme, but it definitely did the trick. I think it kind of triggers your body to force yourself to nose breathe through the night, and once you do it 2 or 3 times, I think it's like a pretty natural response for your body to stay doing that. And I mean, I did that 4 or 5 times maybe. I really don't remember how many, but I've basically been a nose breather ever since the last 15 years, basically, maybe 10, 12 years. Can't remember exactly when I started. If you have a problem with your nose and it's always very blocked, what you can do, and this did help me at the time, was to hold your nose closed and to move left and right or up or down, and that seems to open up the pathways. And obviously getting out of the house, fresh air, that sort of thing helps too. Often people will find that they are more stuffy inside a room or than outside of a room. That could be a dust allergy. So again, make sure your nose is clear, super important. You need to understand what your allergies could be. I find when I'm at home in Ireland, my nose is more runny because the humidity is higher in Ireland than it is in Austria. So again, climate could have a thing to do with it as well. So if you can figure out how to avoid having a stuffed nose, then naturally you'll breathe your nose more easily, and you'll get the benefits of improved lung capacity, of better alignment of the jaw and of the teeth, and just generally better breathing all around. That's the video. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a good day, guys.